Yeah, welcome back. We have been... Yeah, alright. So we finished the introduction to JSON and JSON box. We created our JSON box with our first entry. And what we do now is we are going to connect JSON box with Appgyver. Okay, if we switch back to Appgyver, you will see that on the top black bar we have to select the data, and we have to create a new resource, in this case meetings. If we click on it, then it will ask us about the ID itself. It's basically a name, a short description which is optional, and a resource URL. So the resource URL is the base URL which is always the same for every other request. In this case we just copy essentially this URL here. Let's put it in. Okay, the next thing is because we secured this one with an API, we should also give this API, make it a constant. And we need to go to API header, click on the plus symbol, give it an label, API key. The key itself is the same what would be the key in the header. So x-API-key. We go on text, and it's static. So this value will not change. And then we paste the API key itself inside. Let's save. Okay, let's go to collection, and well, this is already correct because it says I'm going to do a GET request on this path, on this URL, and we do not need to change it. Let's go on test and run a test. Alright, so what we can do is we can take this example data, what we have put in there first, and make a schema out of it from this response. If we press on schema, then Appgyver will learn how this data will look like. It learns that it has an ID with a text, a description with a text, that the feedback is an object with 3 properties, effective, text, and user. It has a location, and so on and so forth. And also it understands that a starts at is not only a text, but a date time text, which is quite impressive. Okay, let's save that. Now we can fill out every other of those methods. We know that to get a single record, we need to put after the base URL a slash and then an ID. In this case, the ID, maybe you can't see it good enough. So in this case, it's surrounded by a curly bracket. And that means that this is a variable, so this can change. And this variable ID, we label it ID. It's already default, but we can change it. So for example, if we want to test it, let's take this ID, copy, go on test, and then it asks me for this ID. And it gets this data because we set it up this way here. Put it in, run a test. There we are. Okay. We do not need to derive the schema again. Once we did it, it will always be the same. Go on create, activate it. The 2 GET requests are already activated. Okay. On config, the create will look like this. We do not need to set up the schema, the HTTP header here again. It's because we have already set it up for the base, and because it's in the base, it will be already included in the all other ones. Okay, let's finish it up. The update looks like the create, has an ID. We click on plus on the URL, and it's we open it here because this ID is a URL placeholder, and we just give it a name, label, then the key. The key must match whatever is inside the bracket. This one is dynamic, so we toggle this out, and it's not optional. We save it. Let's go and delete. Looks the same. There we are. Great. Now what we have done is we created a way to interact with the REST, with the server via the REST API, but we only told Appgyver how this data looks like and how the API looks like. Now what we need to do is we need to activate the data variable. Okay, let's go first at our landing page. And each of those data variables is separated for each other page. So for example, if we create on the landing page a data variable, add data, in this case meetings, it will give me this, it will give me here meeting one, because meetings one, because meetings is the data configuration, while meetings one is the data variable. Okay, let's save it. All right, here we have the meetings one, page variable, app variable, those are clear. And if we go to the create meeting page, here the data variable is not set. It's only set in the landing page. Okay. So what we want to do here is instead of having these these mock data, we want to use actually data from the server. And what we can do is, because it's an array of objects, Appgyver gives you the ability to, let's click on the scroll view, open it, go on the card, and say that this card should be repeated with as long as we have elements in the array. And the array we want to repeat over is the array from the data variable meetings, because we selected in the data variable field meetings as a collection, and a collection means basically a list of objects. So for every object in this list, we want to repeat this card component. Okay. And then we will say the title of each of those card components, and it's indicated by the grayed out duplication. So for every of those card components, we want the title to be a property of a data item in repeat, the currently one, and whatever name we gave it. So it's this name here. Okay. The same goes with content. Okay. This is the location. property of data item, current location. Right. Now here we have the date, and the date looks like, well, it looks complicated. Here is the when the meeting should start, but at the same time we have two different components. Okay, how do we do that? We cannot solve it by just using the strategy as before, by clicking it and going here, going on the data property, and then it will say, yeah, but this one is basically this long string. Yeah, what we need to do is use a formula in this case. So we click on it, and instead of going here, we go into the formula, click on that. We say, let's remove that. Let's just start with a blank line. We want to use one of those functions. In this case, we want to use the date function. And here we have the ability to get some kind of transformation done. Let's take a look what function we need. Get date time component. That looks good. I wish I could enlarge this box, but this is a fixed size. So this function works like that you write down the string and then put around brackets, and then inside of those brackets you put the data you want actually to use. So it says that it has two parameters, a date and a component, and a component can be any of those strings. So the second parameter is a string, one of those 6, and the first component is a string exactly as we have it in our schema. So by double clicking, or just clicking the enter maybe. Oh, okay, cool. And then the date should be coming from the currently repeated data item. Current dot starts underscore at. And this dot indicates that it's an object and it's a key inside an object. So this object as a whole has been named by Appgyver current. And by placing a dot, you can access any key within this object. So by saying current dot starts at, we want the value of whatever is in starts at for this currently repeated object. There we go. Okay. I think we need a day. And do not forget that a string always needs to be quotated. Date. Alright, save. There we are. Okay, but this is not enough. We want more than just the date. We want the month and the year as well. So we can edit our current formula by clicking on the component and then clicking on the right box here. Okay, let's just copy that. And by placing a plus between two expressions, we can glue the string together. So in this case, it would be 27, 27, 27. And it's not a mathematical operation because each of those outputs is a string, which is text. It just places text behind text. Or it's not. No, it's not. Interesting. Okay. Looks like this one is not a string, but an integer. Yeah, expression is a number. Okay, but by placing a string in between, this whole expression will be evaluated as a string. And now we have 28, 28, 28. Okay, but the formatting, maybe let's just put a dash in between. So we want here to use the month and here the year. There we are. And now we do the same thing for the time. Go to date component. We select starts at, and here we want the hour as a string. Plus column. Let's copy that and let's put a minute here. Okay, it's not correct. It should be hour. All right. Okay. If we take a look at how our current app looks like, yeah, basically the same thing. Now the next part is the effectiveness, the rating of this meeting. So we know that our meeting has a feedback array, and every user can rate this meeting and give it an effectiveness. And in this case, it's just one entry, but it could be 10 or 20 or 100 entries of different users rating this meeting. Usually it should be like something like 5 or 6, because more than that, then the meeting is not effective by having too many people inside. But the problem we need to solve is that we need to sum up the values of all those numbers in the effective key value tuple. So we can solve that with formulas as well. So we go in here, we go on formula, and then let's take a look at array. And what array gives you is the ability to use reduce in it. So each of those functions work on an array. And they also give you little examples. You can take a look at how they work. For example, in concat, it will take array 1 and array 2, and it will return a bigger array. Or count will take an array and return the number of elements inside of those arrays. Exclude by key. Yeah, you can take a look at this. Array, key, value, and will be excluded. Okay, so what we want is the reduce function. And reduce means I take some kind of collection and I reduce it on a single number. Maybe they have a sum as well. Oh, sum by key. That's interesting. Okay. Okay, it's essentially a reduce function with a built-in plus operator. We can use that. So let's put a sum by key, and the object we want to sum over is our array. So current repeated data item. Then we go on our feedback Looks like that. Double click. There it is. And the key is effective. Okay. Must be a string. Okay. This should do the trick. Yeah, 1. Okay, let's take a look at that. There we are. So our first page should be completed.